Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taormina.
Welcome to a special OAA Now football preview. This is the white edition. I am Sammy Taormina, blogger around the OAA, host of Last Three Brain Cells, and the host of Between Terminus on Orion Television. I'd like to welcome those watching on the local voice on SoundCloud, those watching on YouTube, and those watching on Orion Television. This week we're going to preview the white division. Of course, we previewed the gold with Kettering and Mott, along with the blue division already. We had the red coming up. We're going to start with the white division. Of course, this division last year was won by Groves, and Groves, of course, is in the, and of course, when you look at Groves, they made the state semifinals, unfortunately losing to Orchard Lake St. Mary's. So without further ado, let's look at our first team, which is the defending league champion, Birmingham Groves Falcons. When you look at this team here, last year they were senior heavy. They lost a lot of talent. So there's a lot of questions when you look at the Falcons. So when you look at this team, a lot of questions. So here's Coach Brendan Flaherty at the podium talking about the Falcons.
It's Brendan Flaherty. I'm the coach of Groves. Want to thank Coach Vernon, Rochester, hosting this. It's fantastic. Thank the media for coming and supporting and growing high school sports, particularly high school football and OAA football. Big shout out to Sammy and all the stuff he does to make OAA cool and relevant, and I appreciate the extra efforts. I'm going to turn the mic. Let my senior guys brought something up with me, and they're going to introduce themselves and their positions.
Dr. Taylor, running back, linebacker.
Josh Ramos, DN, tight end.
Leland Swanson, center. Gage Waters, kicker and punter.
Matthew Andrano, O-line, D-line.
So I think everybody talks about the OAA, and I haven't been coaching any other leagues, so I don't know what other leagues. I don't know. Got Coach Merchant's back, so he can probably speak maybe more of all the leagues, and welcome Coach Merchant. But here's what I do know. In this league, I don't care what division it is, you got to work your tail off to have a chance to win. You got to work your butt off throughout the winter and the summer and all that stuff just to have a chance to win. And that's the cool thing about this league. I mean, it's a challenge. You got to bring it every Friday night. Every Friday night, everybody's got a chance up and down the league. So we're looking forward to the chance, looking forward to the challenge. Wish everybody luck unless you play us, but everybody stay healthy. Go.
As I mentioned, Groves did lose a lot, and there are a lot of questions when you look at the Falcons heading into the year. So I caught up with an interview with Coach Flaherty to talk about how the Falcons have been this offseason. We got the coach of the Falcons, Coach Brendan Flaherty here. Coach, last season you had a lot of success, but what happened at St. Mary's game?
Yeah, St. Mary's was a tough game. We got down there, and at the end of the game, we went for two. It was my call, went for it. Probably kicking myself for the play we sent in, but I don't regret going for two. We wanted to get up and have them chase us. Their guy made a great play, and that's what happens when we get down to semi-final football. So, but we're looking forward to getting back there, this year hopefully, and make another run.
How about that schedule? You opened up with UD Jesuit. So talk about how the schedule's looking for you guys.
Well, it's good to get that first game at home. We got a lot of guys to replace, so playing at home and the opener is good on our own turf there. And UD is solid. I mean, Coach is doing a great job building and getting that thing turned around. So, coming out the gate, we got a saying around our place, if it starts good, it ends good. So having them, then the next week Oxford comes down. So there's, the first 2 weeks are pretty tough for us.
What is your expectations here, Coach?
Expectations, our whole thing is we just talk about beating our rival, beating Seaholm is top of our goals each year, winning the league. And then if we do those two things, we'll get in the playoffs and we'll make a run.
Thank you really much, Coach.
Thanks, Sammy.
I also have a podcast interview with Coach Flaherty. If you want to take a look at it, it's on my blog at Saginaw4650 at blogspot.com, or also on the Orion Neighborhood Television page on YouTube. So when you look at the Falcons' schedule this year, it's very interesting. They open up the year with UD Jesuit. It's an interesting matchup. Obviously, it's part of a 2-year deal. The Cubs, the Falcons now, that should be an interesting matchup because I think that game is in UAD. So that should be an interesting game. Obviously, we know the rivalry there between Groves and UD Jesuit. Of course, Groves has been very familiar with the Catholic League, especially in the last few years. They played teams like Warren D. LaSalle, Orchard Lake St. Mary's, particularly, especially in the playoffs. So it should be a really interesting matchup between the Falcons and the Cubs to see where this young team is going to be at. Week 2, they take on the Wildcats of Oxford. This game's in Beverly Hills. It should be a really interesting matchup, especially in the matchup up front. Oxford's got a very young line, but they do have the returning quarterback in Jack Hendricks. And Grove's obviously replacing a lot, so that's going to be really interesting to see how that matchup goes. And then week 3, they start that gauntlet. They take on Harper Woods. They go down to Harper Woods to take on the Pioneers. That is not an easy matchup for them, especially with how young that team is going to look this year. Week 4, they take on Rochester. And Rochester and Groves have had some games where they've had some really tight ones. Last season, not really that close last year, especially Groves going into Rochester and winning that game. This year's game's in Beverly Hills, so that should be an interesting game. Week 5, they take on West Bloomfield. And you look at West Bloomfield and Groves, they've had some battles in the past. And we know how the coaching matchup between Coach Flaherty and Coach Hilbers will be. It's an interesting matchup because you look at West Bloomfield, they got athletes. Groves, we don't know what type of team they're going to be. I mean, like, they've got some question marks. I mean, like, I know they do have Lavelle Shannon at quarterback, so that's a player to watch in that game. Week 6, they take on A&T. It should be another interesting matchup. I think it could be a really, really tight game between the Warriors and the Falcons. Week 7, they take on Stony Creek, and we know how good the Cougars are going to be this year. I think it'll be a really interesting matchup, to say the least, and I think that'll be a unique, very interesting matchup there. Week 8, they go to Dick Byfield to play Avondale. Of course, it's an interesting matchup. Of course, Avondale's got a new coach in James Carlisle taking over. We don't know where that mental psyche is going to be. And then week 9, they take on Seaholm in Birmingham. Obviously, that rivalry, if you know that rivalry, the Battle of Birmingham very well. Of course, last year, Groves beat Seaholm twice. 2 years ago, Seaholm knocked off Groves. It's been a nip-and-tuck rivalry between the Maples and the Falcons. I know Birmingham TV will have that game on their YouTube page. So it'll be a really interesting year for Groves. When you look at the Falcons this year as a team, this is a very young team. And there's a lot of questions when you look at Groves. I mean, obviously, Lavelle Shannon, a quarterback, you know, obviously replacing Ryan Counts from a year ago. They lost Avery Gott last year. They lost Chris Little. They lost a ton of other guys. I mean, like, you know, so there are a lot of questions for Groves heading into the season. And obviously, can they get this answered? Can they get back to regular routine? I know when I talked to my podcast to Coach Doug Corliss, he said they can. I know they've had a lot of blowouts, so they do have some playing experience, but I don't know if this team has, I really don't know if this team, you know, can step up and play that level to what we expect with Groves. I mean, there's a lot of concern when you look at this team heading into the year. So there's a lot of question marks with Groves heading into the season that I've got some big-time concerns heading into the year. So let's go from Groves down to Harper Woods. When you look at the Pioneers, this is a program that's had a lot of success, especially in the last 2 years. Winning a Division IV state championship in 23, getting the state semifinals last year before falling to a very good Goodrich team. This is a team that's loaded with proven talent, proven experience. So here's Coach Rob Oden at the podium talking about the Pioneers.
Good afternoon, everybody. Rod Oden, head football coach at Harper Woods High School. Super excited to be here again for a great event and the best conference in the state of Michigan, in my opinion. With me today, I brought 5 of our guys. From my right and your left, we have senior defensive lineman, defensive end, Derek Newman. We have sophomore defensive end, Jeremiah McCall. We have senior defensive back, Jawan Jones. And then we have sophomore wide receiver, DeAndre Bidden, and junior wide receiver, Dakota Garan. A little bit about Harper Woods. We've had a decent amount of success the last couple of years. We're looking to continue that with a team that is relatively young. We graduated about 20 guys, which is our biggest senior class since I've been at Harper Woods, but we returned about 34 guys with varsity level experience. We're looking to continue to build depth in order to have what we hope is another long playoff run. The offseason has been great. These guys have developed a great culture and continue to build on that tradition in the weight room and on the track. It's probably our deepest roster since we've been there. So, the program has almost doubled in size. I think we have almost 100 guys in the program now, which is awesome. But we're just hoping to compete week in and week out with some of the state's best, which is sitting in this room right here, which is a direct reflection of our success in the playoffs. We understand that this league prepares us for whatever we are to face in Division IV. So with that being said, I wish everybody here great luck this season. We'll be rooting for all of you guys. And good luck to everybody. Thank you, Coach Vernon and Rochester, for hosting this thing for us again. Thank you.
As mentioned, Harper Woods has a lot coming back, and it starts with their quarterback, Nate Washlow. And also they got Dakota Garan, of course. He is Coach Oden's nephew. They got DeAndre Bidden as well. There are some concerns when I look at Harper Woods this year, and I talked to Coach Oden on the podcast talking about some of those concerns and also some of the strengths that Harper Woods has to offer. What is your expectation this year heading into the season?
Well, our expectation is always to compete to win our league, to go undefeated at home, and play for a state championship. So we're hoping to take it one step at a time, one opponent at a time, and allow this season to be a lot of fun. But ultimately, we're trying to, week by week, get better as this season goes on. We're hoping to build depth so that we can sustain some players through the midpoint of the season that's been kind of nagging us lately with injuries. But ultimately, we're looking to make a long, deep playoff run.
And when you look at that you look at Division IV, obviously, you guys have had a lot of success ever since coming into the league. I've noticed, a state championship, Division IV state semifinal appearance. How important is it, being in this conference been for you guys?
It's been great. OAA has prepared us for all the success we've had in the state playoffs. Make no mistake about it, the week in and week out battles that we have in the OAA white and through our crossovers allow us to get to the state playoffs and kind of play the game almost in slow motion. We're confident that the teams that we play in the OAA are state championship caliber programs that do a great job year in and year out. And from those opportunities and those battles, we're able to show up on Friday nights in November.
When you look at the Pioneers, they do, as I mentioned, return a lot. They got some questions, particularly in the interior defensive line, interior offensive line, and also at the running back positions. They did lose 20 seniors to graduation a year ago. So when you look at this year's Pioneer schedule, it looks very favorable. Opening up week 1 against Redford Union. Of course, Harper Woods played Redford Union twice last year, won both games. First game was week 1. It was a tight game early. Then they had a delay. And then Harper Woods scored 21 unanswered to win that game. Then they went into the playoff game at Redford Union. Harper Woods won that one 43-6. And you look at that matchup week 1, Redford Union does have a very good lineman coming back. Harper Woods has got to go to Redford to take on the Panthers of Redford Union. They have a slogan that says built on Beaconsfield Street. Of course, that's where Harper Woods High School is at. So this should be a really interesting matchup week 1. I know Harper Woods has got a lot of talent, and it should be another interesting matchup when they go to when they take on the Panthers of Redford Union. Week 2, they travel to Clarkson to take on the Wolves. Last season, 2 years ago, Harper Woods went into Clarkston and absolutely devoured the Wolves. They devoured Clarkston. Now, albeit, Clarkston was a very young team that year, but still, when you going into Clarkston and winning there, it's not an easy feat. And Harper Woods, obviously, they got a lot of experience coming back. They got a lot of talent coming back, but so does Clarkston. So that should be a really good game between those two teams over at Clarkston. And, of course, Independence Television will carry that game. That should be a really fun matchup between those two teams. Week 3 against Groves. Last year, obviously, the injury to Nate Washlow. Dakota Grant played quarterback in that game. Harper Woods ended up losing that one in Beverly Hills. So that should be a really interesting matchup. Obviously Groves is a little bit younger this year. So that should be a really unique matchup there. Week number 4, Harper Woods goes to Stony Creek. That game was really tight last year between the Pioneers and Cougars. Harper Woods ended up surviving that game. Now they get to go to Rochester. They get to go to Stony Creek now. Harper Woods does have experience at Stony Creek, of course, playing the Cougars in the league, but also being in the state semifinals last year when they fell to Goodrich. That was at Stony Creek. So they do know that field pretty well. So that should be a really interesting matchup there. Week number 5, they take on A&T of Southfield. That should be a very interesting matchup. We know both teams have athletes. That should be a really interesting game there. Week number 6, Harper Woods hosts Rochester. And we know Rochester's played Harper Woods tough in the past. And we know, obviously last year, Harper Woods did blow out Rochester. So that should be a really interesting game when Rochester makes that trip down into Wayne County to take on the Pioneers. Week 7, Harper Woods goes to Saline to take on the Hornets, and we know how good Saline's going to be. They are loaded with athletes. Obviously, of course, they are loaded. They got Lincoln Keynes there. They got Tommy Carr over there. It's going to be a really tough match for Harper Woods going to Saline to take on a very good Hornets team. It could be one of Saline's toughest matchups of the year. When you look at it, obviously for them, week 1 they play Rockford. Week number 9 they play Lake Orion. And the SEC really doesn't really prepare Saline too much. So, and then bringing a team like Harper Woods in there, that's going to test Saline. So, if you're a Hornets fan, you're probably circling those 3 games: Rockford, Lake Orion, and also Harper Woods. So Harper Woods got a really tough matchup taking on a really good Saline team. Week 8, this should be a very interesting matchup. They take on the Eagles of Ferndale. When you look at this matchup, of course, I'm curious to see the coaching match between Coach Oden and Coach Jackson. So it should be a really interesting matchup to see how these two teams would match up. And then week 9, they take on Mason. Of course, Mason, a proven powerhouse in Division III. The Bulldogs, of course, they have been a real pain to Wall Lake Western. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. But Mason, they're a much different team now. It did lose a lot last year. So Mason, it'll be an interesting matchup. It's 2 good programs going at it. When you look at Harper Woods this year, to me, this is a proven Division IV state championship team. Obviously, it's going to take a lot of work to get back there. Obviously, got to go through Goodrich and also in the Grand Rapids as well. So for Harper Woods this year, when I look at the Pioneers, I expect them to be one of the top teams not only in this division, but also in the state as well. They're ranked highly in the state right now, and I have them right now ranked really, really high in the polls. To start the year, they're going to be ranked in the state as well. So Harper Woods right now got a good thing. There's a reason why for that team built on Beaconsfield Street, and that's where Harper Woods High School is at, and I expect Harper Woods to be very, very good this year in this division. So I expect them to be very, very good not only in this division, but also in the state as well. So it'll be really interesting to see how they do this year, especially with that schedule. When you look at those red letter games against Saline and also against Clarkson, those are the 2 games to really keep an eye on with Harper Woods. Now let's go from Harper Woods to Rochester. When you look at the Falcons this year, you look at the Falcons last year, it was a game of inches. I know that loss last year to Stony Creek really bothers them. So here's Coach Eric Vernon at the podium talking about the Falcons.
As mentioned before, my name is Eric Vernon, head football coach here at Rochester High School. I'm honored to be able to represent this school and the fine young man that I get the opportunity to coach. I have brought 4 seniors here with me today, seniors that have been voted on by their fellow seniors to represent the program. Starting over here on my right, we have senior returning running back and cornerback Devin Grabke. We have senior offensive lineman Zoran Kawaja. To my left here, we have senior defensive lineman and running back Mark Jones. And then we have senior wide receiver outside linebacker Cole Murphy. All 4 fantastic kids, great leaders, hard workers, just like everybody else here. Again, they're excited to be able to represent Rochester High School and represent their teammates. I think this year our strength is going to be in our depth. I say that a lot. We have close to 30 seniors coming back. A lot of guys who are really excited for the opportunity to compete, play some football. We have some fantastic games scheduled for this year. Get to welcome a lot of teams into Rochester High School, and we get to travel to a lot of high schools for that kind of that authentic Friday night lights type atmosphere. And that's one of the great things about the OAA as well. You go and visit a lot of these different schools, you're going to get communities supporting their teams, you're going to get schools supporting their teams, you're going to get a great opportunity every Friday night to play in big games. The one thing too that I think is really special about this school, and I'm excited for, again, we have a lot of athletes coming back. We have a lot of multi-sport athletes. The basketball coach, baseball coach, track coach, we all work together to share athletes, and we're all excited as a school and a community to be able to compete this year. So I wish everybody the best of luck. Looking forward to a great year of OAA football, and go Blue.
When you look at Rochester this year, there are a lot of proven athletes. They do have a sophomore quarterback in Matt Dykey that I'm very curious to see how he does. He played as a freshman last year. When you look at this team, they're loaded with proven experience. They got a lot of it. Of course, Devin Grabke, of course, he was at Media Day. He's going to be one of those guys that's going to be focused on. They got a very good line, very good defense will be improved, I think. So I caught up with Coach Vernon to talk about the state of the Falcons. I got the coach of the Falcons, Coach Eric Vernon. You're looking at the quarterback. How's Matt been doing for you guys?
Oh, he's doing great. I mean, he's put a lot of work in. He played this spring. He was on the varsity baseball team. Spent a lot of time this summer with his travel ball. But when he's here, he's working hard, and he's put on some weight. And just a great kid, great athlete, and he's really good. He's turned into a really good leader, too, as a sophomore.
Talk about the schedule. It's very vicious this year. We talked about Monroe. We talked about week 1, obviously. So talk about that schedule that you have.
Well, it's funny because you look at all of these teams, the schedule in LA is just such a vicious schedule, and it's tough. And we're just excited. Like we talked about, every game is an opportunity to kind of do the traditional Friday night lights of high school football, and we're excited. Our kids are excited for the opportunity to compete, and we're just looking forward to it. Just take it, the cliche, taking it 1 week at a time, and we're certainly looking forward to it. So,
what is your expectation this year, Coach?
I just think it's same with everybody. I think the expectation is to win the league, beat Adams, beat Stoney, make the playoffs, and play at Ford Field. And I think that if you don't have that expectation for your team, then you kind of question what you're doing. And so we just got to keep working, though, the day-to-day process of getting better each day and just trying to be the best version of ourselves.
Thank you really much, Coach.
Yep, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I do have a podcast with Coach Vernon. If you want to take a look at it, it's on my blog at secondnumber4650 at blogspot.com. Also on the Orion Neighborhood Television YouTube page. When you look at Rochester, as I mentioned, they got a lot of strengths. I mean, a lot of depth this year. The only question I have is in that defensive secondary. Obviously, I know in the packet they said the line play was a question mark. I don't really buy into that. But when you look at Rochester's schedule, it starts up interesting. They head to Fraser to take on the Ramblers week 1. And you look at Fraser. Fraser's been a team that's been especially a pain to OAA teams, particularly, they played Troy Athens, and then they played Troy. And then obviously the Troy game 2 years ago when they knocked Troy out of the playoffs. Fraser's got a new coach, new system. So that'll be a challenge for Coach Eric Vernon and the Falcons heading into that week 1 matchup. Week 2, they go to Rochester Adams to take on the Highlanders. Of course, it's been since 1996 was the last time Rochester beat Adams in a game. So it's been a long while. Rochester came close a couple times. I remember the podcast with Ian Locke during the pandemic that I ended up going with Adams over Rochester because of that history. But it should be an interesting matchup. Two teams, Adams we know has got Ryland Waters. Rochester, you got that line. They got of course, Matt Dykey's got a year of experience. So it should be a very interesting matchup between the Highlanders and the Falcons. Week 3, it's the Falcon Frenzy game for Rochester. They get Lake Orion on that one. I asked myself, when you look at the Falcon Frenzy game, Rochester's usually playing tough teams. Last year it was Adams. This year it's Lake Orion. It should be an interesting matchup because, you look at Lake Orion, of course, they play in the red. Of course, they've always been very good the last couple of years. Of course, Lake Orion's a team that proven state power in the state. So that'll be a very tall order for Rochester, taking on a Lake Orion team that kind of reminds me of the team I was on back in 2005. Hungry, humble. It's going to be an interesting game. It'll be a really interesting game. A worksman-like team in the Dragons, so that'll be a really interesting matchup there. Week 4, they take on Groves, and Rochester fell to Groves last year in Beverly Hills. In Rochester. Now they get to go play them in Beverly Hills. So when you look at Rochester's schedule, the 3 of their first 4 games are on the road, and that's going to be very tough. So we'll see how that one goes. Then they play Stony Creek week 5. Of course, we all remember that 22-21 game last year in overtime where Rochester ended up, it was a very controversial call in that one. The referees deemed that the touchdown by Sam Fogler was a touchdown, much to the chagrin of Rochester fans. Of course, also Coach Eric Vernon. That was a game that got Stony Creek into the playoffs last year. And I know a lot of people in Rochester really want to get that game back, and that should be a really interesting game over there at Rochester between the Cougars and the Falcons. Week 6, Rochester travels to Harper Woods to take on the Pioneers. That should be a very interesting game. We know how tough Rochester's been against Harper Woods in the past, particularly when Rochester goes down to Harper Woods. So it'll be last year the Pioneers went into Rochester and blew them out. So that should be an interesting game right there. Week 7, they take on the Warriors of Southfield A&T. Obviously, we know the Warriors is a very good team. The Warriors have struggled, good program in the past, but last year really struggled. They should be better this year. So we'll see how that one goes. Week 8, they take on Royal Oak on the road. That should be an interesting matchup, particularly. Curious to see how both teams are heading in that matchup. And then week 9, they host Monroe, the Trojans. When you look at Rochester, it's a 2-year deal with them in Monroe. Obviously, Monroe's a D1 school. Looking for those points, and that's an interesting game. I can only imagine for them next year when they have to make that trip down to Monroe. It's not an easy trip. So Monroe this year makes the trip up north to Rochester. Next year, Rochester's got to take that trip to Monroe. So there's a lot of, when you look at Rochester, there's a lot of questions with them, especially when it comes to, can this team step up and play at that next level? When you look at Rochester, they're a lot of people's dark horse in this division because of the experience they got, the depth they got, and there's a lot of excitement at Rochester. I know on their YouTube page, I know they have a bird on there, that falcon on there that talks. Whoever does that, I just think about, whoever does that picture, whoever talks that bird, I'm not a real fan of that bird. I'm really not. But for the football team, I am a fan of that team. So Rochester this year, I think it's going to be they're a sleeper in this division. They're a team to watch for in this division. Can they be a postseason team? They can be. They're more than capable. So we'll see what happens with them going forward. Now let's go from Rochester. Let's go to Southfield A&T. When you look at the Warriors, this is a team that's got a lot. 2 years ago they won the Division I state championship. Last year everything went south. They went 2-7. I know they closed out the year knocking out Detroit Renaissance. So here's A&T coach Keith McKenzie talking about State of the Warriors.
Thank you, everyone. I want to thank Rochester again, like everybody, for hosting this event. Before we get started, I'm going to have my guys introduce themselves. So I brought a few seniors and underclassmen, so we'll start right here.
Janet Brooks, linebacker, run that. Caleb Lane, O-line, D-line.
Well, last year when I got up here first time, it was what Southfield was going to be. Well, we was terrible last year, 2-7. So it is what it is. That's what the record said. All right, we weren't good. But we came back this offseason. We committed 100 days of off-season workout, lifting, training, speed improvement. And these guys bought in. Had about 60, 65 to 70% attendance in the off-season. So they bought in. They truly bought in to what I think a championship program should be. The hard work they put in. So we were, like I said, 5 days a week. We're in the weight room 3 days. We're doing Olympic lifts. We're doing the normal lifts. We're doing stretching. We're doing mindfulness training. We're not just training our body, we're training our minds. We're focusing, becoming better players, complete players. So this year, I expect a lot better than last year. We will be better this year. We will put a good product out there on the film. On the field. These guys got pride, and like I said, the buy-in, not just from these guys up here, from the whole team, it's been unreal. So I'm truly excited about what we're going to be this year. The season is not an easy season for us. You know, we open up with East Kentwood, and we got West B, we got one of the Rochester schools, and then we got Lowell. So our first 4 weeks is going to be a little gauntlet. But we come through that, and we come through that good, we should be ready for the rest of the season. This is a tough league, a lot of talent in here, and I'm glad that where we at mentally, physically, because I think we can go out and compete and really get some of you guys a run for your money. So good luck to everybody this year, and stay safe and be healthy.
When you look at A&T this year, they do return a quarterback in Jeremy Porter. Of course, Porter was on and off last year. They do got some proven players coming back, but there are a lot of questions when you look at A&T. So I caught up with Coach McKenzie on the podcast talking about the state of the Warriors. Let's look at your schedule. I mean, your schedule is very interesting. I mean, I've looked at it many times. You guys are in the white this year. Of course, you got Stony Creek, Harper Woods, Rochester, also in there as well, and Grove's also in there as well. But your non-conference is really interesting. You guys open up the year with East Kentwood, and then you got to play Lowell in there. So how did those 2 games come up for you guys?
Well, I knew Coach Spence from my days of recruiting, and he was a Wayne State alum, and I was coaching at Wayne, so we built a relationship there. And when he took over at East Kentwood, I know the area, I know the school, and I knew it was going to be a good challenge for us. So he called me up, asked me, do we have a week 1? And I'm like, well, we're better other game to start off a week 1. Let's go after somebody that's, a giant in the state. And he's going to let us know where we stand. That's one of the things for the guys, and they understand our schedule. And that's what I'm trying to put out to anybody that comes and want to be a part of Southfield football. Man, I'm not going to schedule no cakewalk schedules. We're going to have a solid schedule. We're going to play some teams, and we're playing the playoff point system. So if you want to make it to the state, you got to have points and playoffs, and the teams who you play matter. So East Kentwood is one of those teams. Lowell, we needed a week 4, which was an odd week to try to find a game, and it just happened to line up that us and Lowell needed a week 4 at the same time. So that's why we ended up getting that one, and then we ended up with Chip Valley at the end. So I want my guys to know that we're going to play a solid schedule. You come play football from Southfield, you're going to play a solid schedule. I'm not trying to make it impossible, but if we go through that gauntlet and we get through that schedule on the winning side of the
of the standings and have a great record after going through that, then we'll be battle tested and ready for the playoffs. That's how I look at it. So, I'm just, as the season goes, you get yourself prepared for that. What's next? We still got to win. We still got to win some games to make it to that postseason play. But, the schedule who you put in during the season matters. And you look at a team like a Harper Woods who went through the white and they struggled. They won some, but when they got to the playoffs, they was able to go through and win a state championship because of the being battle tested through the conference.
What's the expectation this year at Southfield?
The win.
The expectations.
The expectation is to win. All right. The expectation is to go out and win by any means necessary. If we got to grind it out, we'll grind it out. If we got to run the score up, we'll run the score up. Whatever we got to do to win the game, that's our goal for this year. And we just want to go win as many games as we can and see what happens at the end. Every game is going to be a season within itself. So I told you guys, we got 11 seasons. Excuse me, I'm thinking college. We got 9 seasons. All right, we got 9 seasons this year. We got 9 games. So each game is its own season, and we just got to be ready for that one.
When you look at the Warriors, they do have a very strong mission statement. When you look at this team, the Warriors, they're on the same page. They've worked hard this offseason. When you look at the schedule, it is vicious, as Coach McKenzie said. Open up the year week 1 with East Kentwood. The Falcons are a very good team. I know the cross-country coach over there, Drew Collette, very well at East Kentwood. Of course, East Kentwood, one of the most premier programs in the Ottawa-Kent Red Conference. Of course, they're in a division with Rockford, Muskegon. So it's going to be a tough match for A&T, especially in wake of what happened last year. Week 2, they take on West Bloomfield. That is a very tough matchup for the Warriors. Last season, it was not a pretty sight in the swamp. Now they get to play them again in Southfield. So that'll be a very, very daunting matchup for the Warriors going up against the Lakers. We know the proven program they got there. So it'll be a really interesting matchup, see how that one goes. Week 3, they take on the Cougars of Stony Creek in Southfield. This should be an interesting game because when you look at the Warriors, obviously they had a tight game with them Stony Creek last year at Stony Creek. Now you look at the game now, it's at Southfield. So it should be a very interesting matchup between those two teams. Week 4, they take on Lowell. Of course, the Red Arrows, of course, when they had Nolan Dean, they ran the misdirection offense. Not sure if they run it now, but it's a very unique offense that they run over there. The good news is that game's at Southfield, so that does help them. I can only imagine the next 2 years when East Kentwood and Lowell, when A&T has to make the trips to the west side of the state, to East Kentwood and the Lowell respectively. So those are going to be really tough matchups there. Week 5, they take on the Pioneers of Harper Woods. That's going to be a very tough matchup. We know how good Harper Woods is with their athletes. Week 6 against Groves, it's another tough matchup. We know how good the Falcons are when it comes to scheme and discipline. So it should be really interesting with them. Week 7, they take on the Falcons of Rochester. Last year in Southfield, Rochester won that game pretty handily. Now they get to go to Rochester. Week 8, they take on Pontiac, and that's a dangerous game for A&T because you look at that matchup, you never know what Pontiac team you're going to get. I mean, Pontiac's a team that is going to work hard. They're going to compete. It should be a really interesting matchup between the Phoenix and the Warriors. And then week 9, they close out the year with Chippewa Valley. Of course, Chippewa Valley last year had some struggles. This year, they're supposed to be better this year in the MAC Red. They got athletes. So when you look at A&T this year, the key for them is to stay disciplined. Traditionally in the past, if they've been disciplined, they win games. If they're not disciplined, they struggle. Last year was a transition period. It's year 2 for Coach McKenzie. So usually he'll have his program in place by then. So it'll be very interesting to see what direction A&T goes this year. So it'll be very interesting, especially with the schedule they got. It's very tough this year, and we'll see what happens then. Now we go to the Cougars of Stony Creek. Excuse me. We look at the Cougars, made the playoffs last year under a new coach and Coach Rick Powell. They got a lot coming up, especially their sophomore and junior classes. So here's Stony Creek coach Rick Powell at the podium talking about the Cougars.
I'll just repeat what everybody had to say. Again, thanks to Coach Vernon, Dean, and Rochester High School for hosting this event. Obviously, thank you to the media as well. This is my first opportunity to be here, as last year I was out of town during this time, so super excited and honored to be here for this event. It's always great to honor these young men that are in the room and their preparation to get to this point, so we appreciate all of that. So before I get any further, I'm going to let these 4 seniors talk a little bit about who they are.
Jake Lancy, senior, wide receiver, DB. Michael Jamora, O-line, D-line, senior.
Brady Ricketts, senior, O-line, D-line. Brody Rumler, senior, O-line, D-line.
Again, these are just 4. We have 24 returning seniors this year, so we're really excited about them and the impact that they can make on the 2025 football season. The second year coming in, we're really excited about the growth of this program, really excited about the growth of these young athletes, the amount of time and effort that they really put into it. They take the off-season serious, not only in the weight room, but obviously on the field, in the classroom, preparing for film work, so we're really excited about what they have to offer. Obviously, we play in a really, really competitive league in the OAA White, with a couple crossovers to Lake Orion, Rochester Adams, and Berkeley. So extremely difficult schedule. A couple coaches have already mentioned it, but we have to be at our best on a weekly basis. And that's all our mindset is every single day, to get 1% better and to really grow as a team and as a program closer together and try to play our best football towards the end of the season and hopefully get in the playoffs. A lot of these guys that are coming back for us, although we did make the playoffs last year, I think now understand and know what it takes to not only be a successful football team, but to build on that and be a successful program at the highest level on a consistent basis. And that's what we're really trying to be about week in and week out. So thanks again for Coach Vernon and Rochester High School. Best of luck to everybody. Stay healthy and have a go OAA Cougars.
When you look at the Cougars this year, there are, they do got some questions, particularly at quarterback. They're known for their line up front. Of course, they got Peyton Rumbler, who's one of the best linemen in the entire state, coming back. So when you look at the Cougars, there's a lot of optimism. They got some athletes. Their junior and sophomore classes are very good, but they also got a good senior class. So I caught up with Coach Powell to talk about the state of the Cougars. We got former Lake Orion defensive coordinator and coach at Stony Creek, Coach Rick Powell here. Coach, obviously you look at last season, you had a lot of success. So talk about, the success and what is the goals for Stony Creek football?
It wasn't a shock to us with the success last year, but it was more just kind of we were just trying to be at our best every single day, every single practice. We were trying to focus on being, on a complete program, a complete positive culture to kind of bring people up and hopefully put our best foot forward each week. And we were hit and miss in the beginning of the season, and we kind of hit our stride in the middle to end of the season. Hit a nice week 9 win to launch us into the playoffs, and we things did not go our way week 10 in the playoffs versus Rochester Adams, and I think it was a good kind of reflection of our guys to say, okay, this is what we need to be week in and week out to be successful at the highest level.
We talked in the podcast, we talked about the quarterback situation. How's that quarterback situation going?
So it's an awesome thing to have. I think we always talk about iron sharpens iron. It's one of our solid teammate mantras and goals. So we have 2 quarterbacks, a senior, Jake Matlis, and a junior, Brandon Gurdzix. So we're really excited about the growth and development of them. They both had experience last year. One is a junior, one is a sophomore. So we're really excited about what they can bring because they're both very different in their approach. But we're going to see who steps up and leads.
What is the expectations here, Coach?
Again, same thing. We're just trying to be the best that we can every single day. Our guys are trying to grow consistently, and we have a lot of returning guys that have some type of experience. We lost 2 or 3 key pieces last year, but beyond that, everybody else coming back has seen some type of varsity experience moving forward. So, our focus right now is Warren Cussino week 1, and that's our goal.
Thank you really much, Coach.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
So when you look at the Cougars, of course, if you want more information with Stony Creek football, I do have the podcast with Coach Powell on the blog at Sagamay4650 at blogspot.com, and also on the Orion Neighborhood Television YouTube page. So when you look at Stony Creek, a lot of experience. The line's very good. You look at, of course, they got a solid rushing attack. They got proven receivers. Defense, linebackers are solid. Secondary is solid. Defensive line is going to be solid. So the only question I have with them is the quarterback situation. Now, Coach Powell did mention this. He has 2 proven quarterbacks. So when you look at Stony Creek, their schedule, it is interesting. Opening up week 1 at home against Warren Cousino. Of course, last season, the Cougars went to Warren and won that one. Of course, Coach Powell graduated at Warren Cousino. So, so basically it's an interesting matchup, obviously between the Cougars and the Patriots. Now that game's at Stony Creek, and that should be an interesting game. Week 2 is going to be interesting because Coach Powell teaches at Lake Orion. He used to be the defensive coordinator under Coach Chris Bell at Lake Orion, and also under Coach John Blackstock. This is going to be an interesting game. I know in the sub-varsity levels, Stony Creek has gotten the best of Lake Orion. But, this is the varsity. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be a really good game between those two teams, between the Dragons and the Cougars. I know ONTV is going to have that game on Orion Neighborhood Television, of course, with Coach Doug Corliss and Coach Frisching. That'll be a heck of a game between the Dragons and the Cougars in Lake Orion week 2. Week 3, they take on A&T. Stony Creek goes down to Southfield to take on the Warriors. Last season, of course, it was a bit of a struggle for Stony Creek, but they ended up getting the job done against A&T. So it should be an interesting matchup down in Southfield for them. Week 4, they host Harper Woods. And that's going to be really interesting because last season, Stony Creek gave Harper Woods everything they could handle. And it ended up being a heck of a game. Unfortunately, Stony Creek ended up losing that one 21-14. It was a really good defensive game, but I think that kind of really turned their season around with that Harper Woods game. Just experiencing that progress, even though they didn't win, but just seeing the direction they were going at that time. And then week 5, this is a big one. It's Rochester. You look at last year, they needed a 2-point conversion from Sam Fogel to knock off Rochester. Albeit that game was very controversial, but that game got Stony Creek in the playoffs. I know a lot of Rochester fans did not want to hear that, but that should be a fun game between those two teams in Rochester. I know Stony Creek's going to bring their band with them, and I know that you look at that Rochester area, the visitors usually bring their band to games when it's a close distance. So it'll be very interesting to see how that one's going to go. But usually that should be a really good game between Rochester and Stony Creek. Particular battle up front is going to be really, really interesting to see how that one goes. Week number 6, they host Adams. And you really look at that matchup. Of course, Stony Creek played Adams twice last year, lost both meetings, including in the playoff game. You look at what Coach Powell did in week 1, under year 1 there. Obviously, he's done a really nice job. Adams, of course, obviously, they run the veer. They have Rylan Waters back. It's going to be a tough matchup. Adams does have some concerns up front, so that should be really interesting to see how they handle that. Week number 7, they take on Groves. Excuse me. Last year, Groves went to Stony Creek and won that game. Now it's in Beverly Hills. It's going to be really interesting to see how that one goes. Week 8, they take on Berkeley at Stony Creek, so that should be an interesting game there. Obviously, we know the Bears with Coach Humes. I'm curious to see that match between Ben Bullock going up against that Cougars proven defense. And then week 9, they go to Ann Arbor to take on the Ann Arbor Huron. I think they're the River Rats. And, excuse me. When you look at that matchup, Stony Creek last year had no problem with Ann Arbor Huron last year winning that one. Now they get to go to Ann Arbor to take on Ann Arbor Huron. So it'll be really interesting to see. Program strength for the Cougars is the key. As I mentioned, Stony Creek's got a really strong sophomore, junior, and senior class. Freshmen, I'm not real sure about, especially with the numbers at Hart and also at Ruther. So it'll be interesting to see where Stony Creek is this season. But there's a lot of excitement with the Cougars, obviously under year 2 under Coach Powell. He's going to have his system fully implemented at Stony Creek. So when we look at the White this year, it's interesting. The coaches poll at Harper Woods favored. I have Stony Creek winning the division. And I think the reason why is Harper Woods got to travel with Stony Creek. Obviously, last year, Harper Woods had a lot of problems with Stony Creek. So I really think that the Cougars, I really like their team. I know when I look at Stony Creek, I think 7-2 looks really, really reasonable. And obviously, they got those 2 tough games against Lake Orion and Rochester Adams. Harper Woods, I think I have it 5-4, but I think they're more of a 6-3 team. And I think when you look at Harper Woods, that schedule is brutal. I know they got to play Saline and Clarkson. Those are 2 tough games. I think when you look at the Harper Woods with what I think they're going to be, I think they're a 6-3 team, then a 5-4 team. But I think it'll be interesting there with them. Rochester, as I said, this is a team that's going to surprise some people. They have experience. They have a sophomore quarterback in Matt Dykey. He's made big-time strides. You have Devin Gracky at running back. It wouldn't surprise me he has 1,000 yards this year. I think with Rochester, with them, I think they're going to surprise some people. They're going to make some noise. Groves. Reason why I have Groves at 2-7 is they got a lot of young guys. They got a lot of young guys. And I don't know how they're going to respond. I know when I talked to Coach Corliss and Tyler Keep at Civic Center TV, they got Groves a playoff team. I'm not real sure. You know what I mean? I'm really not that sure when you look at Groves, with the young team, young nucleus. Yes, they still got some players from that state semifinal team that's got experience. But I just got some concerns, big-time worries there with them. And then A&T. Obviously, you look at with them, they could struggle again. And the schedule's brutal. Yes, they're better. Could they be more than 1-8? Absolutely. Could Groves be better than 2-7? Absolutely. But I just think when you look at that schedule A&T's got, it's brutal. It's difficult. It's going to be a big challenge for them. I know it's year 2 under Coach McKenzie, but I just don't know if I see it with them this year with a lot of question marks. So when I look at the White, I know the coaches polls got Harper Woods winning it. I've got Stony Creek winning it based on because Harper Woods has to go to Stony Creek, and we know how hard that's been. And when you look at that matchup, you look at that game, it's going to be interesting to see how this division is going to look. It's a tough division, no doubt about it. It wouldn't surprise me if 4 teams in that division make the playoffs. I think I got Groves ranked low. I think I got obviously Rochester's a team I'm high on. Stony Creek's a team I'm high on, and Hostile Harper Woods I'm high on. So it wouldn't surprise me, if 4 teams make the playoffs in that division. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Everybody signing off here. Make sure you follow the blog at Saginaw84050 at blogspot.com for latest information around the OA. Next time we got the Red Division to talk about. Take care, God bless, and I will see you soon. God bless all.